everybody to hear. Daphne, meanwhile, Daphne, would you like to ask your question? She says, is there a higher authority than the GCP who can have the final say on these plans? I'm going to unmute Daphne. Maybe you'd like to...
Yes, it seems that a lot of these plans have come from this councillor who clearly wants to get her gong at the end of the day. Who can have the final clout over her? And if there is somebody, should we be putting pressure on them to do something?
I think Daphne, the lady who I alluded to is an officer. She is the strategic director, whatever that means, of the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. So she's not the top person there, that's Stephen Kelly. Yes, there should be a higher authority, and that is your elected representatives. So Lewis Herbert and Mike Sargent, who's on the planning, should be in a position to tell these people what they think and modify the plans if they are dissatisfied with them.
Thank you.
The other people, of course, who are involved you know, James Palmer's crowd in Peterborough, but they're not deciding what's going to be built. It's the planning authority who decides, and that is Cambridge City Council, or Greater Cambridge as it's becoming known.
Do we have another question?
I saw Anthony. You made a comment on the next door about the development. I mean, does that help or hinder your understanding of the situation at all?
Hang on, I need to find him. Tony, you're unmuted now.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure what the question was.
It's Anthony Frayling.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I thought I hadn't asked one.
Just looking for Anthony Frayling. Anthony, you're now unmuted, I think.
I think he's muted. Okay, it's okay now.
Anthony?
I think you've unmuted me again. Tony Willoughby.
Yeah.
Anthony's unmuted. Maybe his audio isn't working.
No, maybe he's gone for a cup of tea.
Okay. Well, maybe come back to that later. So I mean, I would say that I asked the question about some of these issues at the North East Cambridge sort of councillors committee, and I was kind of underwhelmed by the response I got. I mean, a couple of them said I got a point about a couple of the points, but the vast majority, you know, showed no interest whatsoever, which, you know, I was quite disappointed about, because, okay, it's kind of long term, this thing, but, you know, it's a really massive thing, and it's going to have a really massive impact in the longer term. Okay, maybe not for 10 years, but now's the only time to do it. The other problem is the kind of parameters we're working with in terms of consultation are kind of fairly limited. Like, they basically said, you know, we've got to have this number of flats and offices in here. That's a given. All you can do is trying to decide how you want to spread them around a bit. But it seems impossible to get them to say, well, is this actually, you know, a good idea? Should we not have quite so much, and should we have more in the way of facilities and green space? And that seems to be quite difficult. And it's probably only the councillors, and okay, they're all under massive pressure from the government, but there would surely be an option to kind of spread this around other developments, rather than actually try and cram quite so much into a square mile.
I think that's absolutely right, Andrew. The problem that we've got is, I think, in a nutshell, like any catastrophe, you have to have 2 or 3 things happening coincidentally. And what we have here is an ambition to increase the available housing, which may be laudable. There's clearly a need for more housing. We have a commitment to build more housing at the regional level, and we have a government fund, which was a limited duration fund, coming available to unlock land which would otherwise not be available. That's to say, the sewage rate. So you have this ghastly combination of 3 things, each of which is not in itself a disaster, but taken together have every ingredient needed to create a disaster.
We have a question from Charles. Charles, I'm just unmuting you. It seems to take a moment to unmute, so please go ahead when you see your...
I'm done, I think.
Great.
First of all, I am the only representative of Milton Road Residents Committee here, and I'm embarrassed. I did pass the word round to the others. They're all doing other things, and life's like that. But the number of times you've mentioned Milton Road makes me realise that we should be much, much more involved than we are, and I will try and stir the pot and get us more involved. Is it going to be possible to refer people to the slides that you've used today so that they can read through those? They won't get the valuable words that you've given us, but at least they'll be able to follow the argument and the logic before they make their responses. That's my question. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we could put it on the HPERA website. We were thinking of making a recording available, although we might have to have another stab at that, given the sort of technical hash of it we made. But
I think we will try to put a recording of some kind, even if you have to make your presentation again, especially because it would, or else you could do this for another audience, for the people of Milton Road, perhaps, because it is very valuable to hear you talk through the slides. You understand much better once you see and hear simultaneously. So we will try that, but the slides could certainly go on the website, I think.
Thank you. I agree completely about the value of the talk as well, but thank you for whatever you can do for the rest of us.
Thank you. I'm going to mute you again. There is another question, a couple of questions coming in. Sophie White, I'm going to unmute you. Perhaps you could talk about how we might get the media involved, as this is your special subject.
Well, thank you, Nikki. I mean, I suppose I'm just saying what people must be aware of, which is that our elected representatives feel uncomfortable when there is publicity, when there is local coverage about these issues. And I just don't know if anyone's already sort of found whatever's left of our local media, whether there are any reporters who are already interested in this, as they were about the Milton Road scheme, for example. You know, can we identify someone who's prepared to listen to the case and give plenty of information? I know people follow the Cambridge Independent, don't they? But it would be good to get sort of Anglia TV or what's left of BBC in this area involved as well, and just keep them regularly informed, because I don't think our councillors enjoy negative publicity at all, and there is obviously an issue of governance here, which I think it would be good for the press to shine a spotlight on. At the same time, we don't want to appear as NIMBYs and just saying no to any development at all, and I think that's something we'd have to, you know, be very sensitive about and recognise the need, because Cambridge housing is ridiculously expensive, and so we can't be seen to be anti any development at all. But I think there are all sorts of issues that have been excellently highlighted this evening, which local press, regional press would be interested in. So I'd be very happy to pitch in on that, but if anyone has got any good contacts, that would be Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could have a chat with you about that, Sophie. Obviously, it's kind of your area of expertise rather than ours.
I mean, I think the point you just made, Sophie, is a very good one. It's a very laudable one. It would be very easy for us to come across as exactly that, as NIMBYs. And I think that would be an unfair characterisation of most of our views, because I think most of us recognise that not only are we the beneficiaries of the huge uplift in values in and around Cambridge, but we recognise either through families or people we know that housing is really beyond the reach of many people who 20 or 30 years ago would have had a very good prospect of either getting affordable housing, as we now understand it, or social housing. So there's no question that there is a housing need. I think the question is how you go about delivering it. And clearly, what has ended up being produced is driven by numbers, which may be necessary numbers to make arithmetic work in terms of outcomes. But if you just do the maths on the basis of trying to replicate Goldsmith Street in Norwich, or indeed the Cambridge Council development on the Mill Road depot, you end up with a very different mix of housing and a very much more humane and livable space than what is being proposed here. And I think that's the problem. We've become the city, has become hooked on some target numbers. One can question whether they are absolutely necessary in the overall scheme, but one should question whether the way that it is being proposed to be delivered is good for people and is good for people who are in housing need. COVID has demonstrated amply that people all need space. This is the antithesis of giving people space.
Now, Jerry Rose has a question. Jerry, you're unmuted now.
Not unmuted.
He's not unmuted and I can't hear him.
It won't unmute him. I'll read his question. Who are the city and the county councillors for this specific area?
Well, the county council for this area is in Manning, who's a Liberal Democrat. Although we don't always see eye to eye with Ian on everything, he has actually been reasonably sympathetic on this. The city councillors are Mike Sargent, who's also the deputy leader of the Labour group, and I think has some influence on this, although the Labour group as a whole are generally in favour of what's being done, I assume, because they want to see more housing, which is a laudable aim, but they don't seem to agree with us about the problems we see with the way it's being done.